Calling to order the meeting of the Town Planning Board, December 28th. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Folks, the next item that we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the December 14th meeting, but I don't think the minutes have made their way around yet. So we're gonna table the minutes until we all can get a good look at them. So the first real item on the agenda is an application by Brolex Properties. This is relative to a subdivision and site plan approval for the Freeman Estates. It's indicating it's a 12-lot subdivision at 7430 High Bridge Road in Fayetteville. And this all pertains to tax map number 101-02-02.1. And I believe I see Tom Oot there on behalf of the applicant. Tom, can you unmute yourself?
Unmute.
You're muted, Tom.
Can you tell them how to do it, Lisa? Tom, go down to the lower left-hand corner and it should pop up. Mute, unmute of your screen. Just drag and click.
Got it. There we go. How's that?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Doug.
guys. Not very illiterate with these computers. So in any event, we are here, we're back. And the plans we submitted are very detailed. I think Doug's had a chance to look at them. They are actually what we call our contract drawings for the site development work. But earlier meetings, we presented a density plan showing 6 R3 conforming lots, 3 or 6 duplex lots under the R3 zoning, which is what establishes our 12-unit density, which is what is on the plan today that we're presenting. Basically, we're looking for 278 consideration for clustering using the R3 zoning that has been approved for the site. I made a list of some of the stipulations that the developer is willing to enter into. I know these were concerns of the town regarding how it would be developed, what would be developed. But basically, it's the 5.8 acres, the upper portion of the site is the only area that would be developed. As you note, all the stormwater management is on the upper portion. We did not have to put any stormwater in the lower section of the property. We were able to do it all up above. You'll also note that there are no catch basins, so the town does not have any liability for acts as a collection device for the stormwater. Then it's taken to a riprap swale, and from there it's managed by the homeowners association. We have a very short section of town roadway. We have agreed to add a grass island in the center of that cul-de-sac based on Mr. Cushing's request to have 26 feet of blacktop around an island for snow removal purposes. The island would be maintained by the homeowners association. So the town's only exposure would be that small piece of roadway. From there, private driveways would serve all of the homes. They'd be maintained and cared for by the homeowners association. The 17 acres on the back of the site would be covenanted. We would file protective covenants whereby we would agree that that would remain forever wild green space, subject only to walking trails to be located wherever the homeowners decide they want to put them. So that we also would require, prior architectural approval. We have a lot of controls built into these projects so that we can maintain the character and quality of what's being built. We would have a covenant or a restriction in there that we would always maintain a minimum of 20 feet of separation between anything that's built, either now or in the future. Separation is paramount. You see some of these projects, some of my projects that other builders have gone into, and they push houses too close together. It detracts from the quality of the community. We would have a covenant or restriction in there that would be consistent with the town's requirement that a 25-foot buffer be maintained at all times between the designated flood zones and the steep grade areas that are on the property. We would also have a protective covenant. We would address a prohibition on cutting or removal of any of the existing healthy trees or vegetation located on the embankment. Timber, some trees that have grown there. We do not have to disturb them for our project. So we want those to be preserved and maintained. So we would have a covenant to that effect as well. We would also prohibit things like storage sheds, unregistered vehicles, campers, boats, fences, swimming pools, antennas, the whole laundry list of stuff. And I'd be happy to share those with the board so you can read those and see if they're to your satisfaction. Our intent, though, is to convey under 278 basically a footprint based under the control jurisdiction of the homeowners association, just like Erie Village, same format. With that, I guess I'll answer any question the board may have.
Tom, this is Rich. Originally, and I may be mistaken, and if I am, you can correct me. I thought we were looking at 12 duplexes, which would be 24 units. Are we now looking at 12 single-family homes?
We are still with 12 homes, but rather than being attached, they are now detached. Again, the attached homes were solely for the density computation to show that we can do it in compliance with the R3 zoning.
But isn't what you've displayed here, and I may be wrong, what you displayed here conforms to R3, which really isn't a cluster development. This is an R3 development, 12 single family lots. Am I mistaken?
I don't think this would strictly comply with the R3 as it is shown now, as it is as a cluster. Was to determine our density, like we did with Brennan Fields and Austin Meadows. Same formula we did in both of those cases. So that was that exercise was for that purpose only.
Okay, so the footprint of the building is the lot. Everything else is common area.
Prefer not to. But that's kind of how we're doing it. So we would like to build 12 detached homes and not exceed the density that would be allowed under the R3 strictly applied.
Okay, I'm not sure if you heard me or not, but the actual lot is the footprint of the structure. Everything else is common area.
Correct. So there would be no lots, no traditional lots per se.
Okay.
That's with clustering.
And I'm not, Jamie, this is more of a question for you. Maybe, I don't know how the roadway, the cul-de-sac, is somehow maintained by the HOA as opposed to the town. I don't know what documentation we need to support that. And
Rich,
you're
the
on,
way
you're
Yep,
on mute.
it will, yep, got it. It will
The
all
way-
be part, it'll all be part of the covenants.
The way it's proposed right now is that cul-de-sac would be a public road. The inside, the island would be owned and maintained by the HOA, right, Tom?
Yeah, so actually we could exclude that legal description from the roadway that we convey to the town.
Okay, so that would be part of the common area.
That'd be part of the common areas, yes.
Okay, all right.
And that's what Rob would be looking for.
And would the balance of the property, the 22 acres, whatever it is that part of the common area also, Tom, the way you're
That-
proposing?
The entire property outside of the actual footprint for each of the homes would be owned by the homeowners association, which would be a not-for-profit corporation, which would exist in perpetuity, subject to all these restrictions that we're going to put on.
Okay, all right.
Jamie, I've got a question on the covenants. I like the idea of the covenants. I'm a little less sanguine about the ability to enforce them going forward within the HOA. I live in an HOA that's long since fallen apart, and there is no HOA. If it still exists on paper, it doesn't exist in actuality. So how do you maintain the quality that you've built into this project going forward?
The only way an HOA can enforce covenants is to have money on hand to do it. So if the HOA is not collecting revenue on a regular basis, they're not going to be able to enforce their covenants. So here, where we have a full offering plan where each homeowner is going to pay a monthly fee, and it's probably going to be $300 a month, I'm just guessing at this point, and that will be for lawn care, snow removal, but it'll also have a reserve in there for legal funds so that we have money to go to Supreme Court to enforce these covenants, because that's the only court that has jurisdiction to enforce them. But you have to have the money to do it. So if the HOA is not properly funded, yes, that is what's going to happen. But these HOAs are so so integral to the overall thing. It's like the HOA at Erie Village. The community would not exist. It couldn't exist without the HOA. They control too much. And the same thing.
Yeah, Tom is breaking up, but yeah, the issue of an HOA and maybe where you live, it's like, oh, you can't, put in a pool, or you can't, park RVs in the driveway, is a lot different than this kind of HOA that literally, if they stop collecting money, their road stops getting fixed, right?
Yep, they wouldn't get.
So, or their
They'll
trails
get cut.
stop, right?
The other thing, Jamie, because they don't own any additional land area, they couldn't put in a pool because they don't own the land. They couldn't put in a fence because they don't own the land. So there's some other issues that help us enforce those covenants.
There's another thing I've seen too in HOAs, and this goes back to old HOAs where they were only in existence for 20 years or 30 years, then they go away. The HOA that we're talking about, since there's common area and it's a corporation, it would continue on
Forever.
in essence forever.
Yeah, forever. In fact, it would to dissolve this HOA.
Who asked that question?
Ernie.
Yes, I think Arnie asked the question.
Well, that would be, Tom could answer, or Jamie better than I, but that would be part of the documents. It would tell you how the HOA would be dissolved or changed or whatever. It would be 2/3 vote or whatever it is of the members.
Right.
But I-
Go ahead.
I don't know what this says.
Yes, I mean, we have another project that's looking at HOA. And one thing I'm going to say about Mr. Udi, he's very experienced in this type of HOA to the exclusion of many others. And I've seen it over the years in many different places. So I will be reviewing that. I'll make sure that it says what it's going to say. I feel quite certain that we're going to get what we need to make sure that it is a perpetual HOA and that it doesn't you know, obviate the whole cluster situation, and where they don't, the people don't come and say, you got to accept this road, or you have to do this for us. That's what the town does not want. And that's why the cluster is so critical.
Any other questions?
All maintenance, including mowing grass and collecting leaves in the fall, will be a function of the HOA?
Yes, definitely. The one that I don't know about right now would be whether or not we're going to maintain the roofs and the siding like we do in Erie Village. That's the only one we got to decide on, but exterior maintenance would be handled by the HOA. So there'd be snow removal, lawn care, trees and shrubs, fertilization, et cetera, leaf removal, what have you.
What type of siding are you going to put on, Tom?
Well, that's a good question, Ann. I think we were probably, in all likelihood, go with a composite.
Put it like Erie Village.
Yeah, well, Erie Village, we're switching over to, and you can't tell. In fact, I dare all of you, drive through Erie Village and you tell me which ones are the real cedar and which ones are the cedar impression. Because they've been changing, they've been doing about five units. Go right up to the house, you cannot tell the difference. But one you have to paint every 4 years and the other one you don't. So their painting bill at Erie Village is $800,000 a year to do 120 units. And it happens every year because they're on a 4-year rotation. There's 480 units. So it's a big ticket item. Painters love it.
Yeah.
Never ends.
So just if I could go back and ask the question, what you're asking for from us at this point is a subdivision that would be under 278 for 12 single-family homes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And what I don't have for you tonight is the preliminary plan prepared by the surveyor, which I will deliver to you as soon as it's completed. So I apologize for that. That would be the map that gets filed in the courthouse.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure we're clear because it's changed a little bit from the last time we talked.
Yeah, I like you, Rich. I thought this was going to be duplexes, if you will, on the footprints, on the lots.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Are we at the point of approval of the project?
No.
No.
I think at this point, we need to make a decision as to, with some finality as to the density for the cluster development, to know just how many we can put in. And I don't know if we're at that stage with Doug, whether Doug has had an opportunity to review everything and make a determination as of yet. Doug?
No, if Tom can get me that information from his surveyor, then I think we could make that determination. But I think we're on the right track. I mean, I think everything looks fine. I've looked at, Tom has sent over an initial SWIP. The SWIP looks pretty decent. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Just a couple loose ends, Tom, if you could send that stuff over, then I think we'd be at that point, Joe.
And then my intent would be to put it on the next available hearing and make a final determination, final vote as to the density that we can approve.
And I apologize if I'm asking a stupid question, but I'm good at doing that. I'm looking at CA 110 that has no dimensions. Do we have some dimensions on other plans that are in here, Tom? I don't know, and I apologize.
You don't on those. You will have them on the surveyor. Whatever, we started with the landscape architect and the surveyor is the last one on the list. But the next plan, the subdivision map that I provide to you will have dimensions on there of basically everything that's relevant, let's put it that way.
All right, I appreciate that.
I think that the house plans, as far as what actually gets built, like with Erie Village, we've always had maintained some flexibility, but we have rules built in. For example, the 20 foot of separation, so that we basically might change a little bit. You know, I don't want them all to be the same cookie cutter. We want them to look different, but we want to have some rules that we can put into play, so to speak. So I think we can do both.
Do these have
And-
basements or are they on a slab?
Yeah, they want full basements,
Full
yeah.
basements, okay.
Yeah.
Walkout?
I don't think so, because we have to stay 25 feet away from the embankment.
I think, yeah.
So I mean, if the grade permits it, yes, we'll take advantage of that, but
I don't want to ask you a silly question, Tom. This is Joe again.
yeah.
But isn't this really a 13 lot subdivision with 12 building lots and the
Yes, you
remainder?
are. Well, yes, we have to number the remaining land as per town policy. That's the way we've always done it. So yeah, call it 13 lots, but it's 12 homes.
Okay, yep, okay.
Yeah,
Hey, Tom, this is Mike Leroy.
yes.
In terms of the public road here, how does trash get picked up?
Trash get picked. Well, number one, I don't know if we're going to be in the trash district or if we're going to hire that out.
So are these roads that lead to these houses, they're not going to be
Yeah.
maintained by the house, is that correct?
Yeah, the HOA would pay for that. It'd be part of their monthly fee.
So are those roads wide enough to get a garbage disposal truck down?
Yes, they will be wide enough. In fact, the private roadways are going to be very similar to your town. I mean, we're going 24 feet on our width, so 26, 24 feet. So they should be fine. Shouldn't be a problem. But I assume we're going to have garage pickup. So they're going to actually go to each house.
And I
So
guess
it looks like a drive-in back out for the garbage disposal or the garbage people.
Well, they can turn around at the end there. There's room to,
Okay,
we'll make sure they have room. to
I just couldn't tell by the width of this road, so.
well, that's the reason why we need dimensions,
Yeah,
Mike.
right. Well,
No, I understand.
the town road coming in with the island in it would have 26 feet of blacktop on all sides of the circle, the island. And if you look at that plan in relation to what I call the private.
Okay,
Car garage on each one?
2-car garage, yeah, and I think they'll all be 2s. I don't think there'll be anything larger than 2.
Okay.
I don't envision it.
are there any other questions?
Tom, how big are these houses gonna be in terms of square feet?
Well, I think you're going to see on the small end, you may see something as small as 1,700 square feet, but I suspect most of them will be around 2,000 to 2,400. Again, each homeowner is a little different, you know. I mean, some people don't want a lot of space. Not to say they won't put a lot of money into the house, but you know, you got to clean it, you got to maintain it, you got to take care of it and pay taxes on it. So it's hard.
Are they all 2-story? Any ranches?
They're all ranches. I envision them all to be ranches. I don't think
All
they'll be
ranches.
2-story. You may have a little bit of bonus space on the second floor.
Jamie, just a general question on this. At some point with dimensions, we will approve a subdivision. And then someone's going to come along and say, according to the subdivision map, that's a 2,000 square foot lot, I'll call it, because that's what it is.
Yep.
And I may say, hey, I want a 2,400 square foot house there. Does Tom need to then come back for an amended subdivision plan? How does that work? Because these lots are going to change as time goes on.
Right. So normally what we do is we submit with our building permit application to Randy. He would have a proposed plot plan, which would show the proposed house on the property, and it would show it in relation to anything else that's already in existence. as again, we're going to have a set of rules built in here. We're always going to maintain 20 feet of separation between structures. We're always going to have a setback in the front from the private roadway, call it, so that there's a sufficient driveway to park vehicles, etc. We're going to.
I'm froze a little bit, but the thing is about on a cluster development.
Deviation in the actual what gets built. So what we do is once that blueprint is approved for construction and that plot plan is approved by Randy, we build the house. After it's built, we record an as-built survey. So we record a quit claim deed from the homeowners association who owns all the surplus area. We quit claim anything that's inside that footprint to the homeowner. So that the HOA is releasing any claim to what's underneath the actual house itself. So yes, there will be some minor variations, but in essence, there'll be more than 12 will be the maximum, and they're all going to be at least 20 feet apart in every location, and they'll meet all the other requirements. So we can do it.
So what? Yeah. So Tom is stating they're going to be at least 20 feet apart in these various criterion. That is something for us to approve because these covenants are integral to a cluster development. So it might not be true in other a traditional subdivision, but with respect to a cluster, everything is up for grabs, and we're varying every part of our code whenever you do a cluster development. So if he comes, he says they have to be at least 20 feet apart. And if we are like, no, they need to be 30 feet apart, that's a discussion item. We might say that's not what's going to go in this covenant because that's how it's going to be built is what.
I guess, Jamie, what I was really asking, and Tom answered it, whether it's legal and whether it's the proper way to do it, I don't know. But let's just say that we come up with 2,000 square foot lots for all of these lots that we have in a plan. But then we have people coming in and saying, I want 1,800 square feet, 24, 26. Is that an amended subdivision? Or as Tom just explained, is that simply the HOA either deeding to the homeowner or the homeowner deeding to the HOA, the difference in square footage?
He probably is going to set up a maximum square footage. Tom, am I right about that? For each lot, and it can't be exceeded. And if it is, then I would suggest to you that it is a modification. They would have to come back on the cluster.
Okay, well, I'm still a little confused, but Jamie, you and I can talk about it off-site. We don't have to do it tonight, but thank you.
I think the other thing is, Tom, as soon as you can get your survey data and, you know, your listing of what your covenants are and your setbacks and whatnot, you know, if we could meet ahead of time, that would probably accelerate everything for you.
I agree. Okay.
Right.
I'll do that. As soon as I have it ready, Doug, I'll give you a call. And
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. We're going to adjourn this then until a later date, depending on when the information comes in, so we can make a final determination on density. Thank you, Tom.
thank you. I'll have it to you before the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Folks, the next item on the agenda is the application by Abundant Solar. This was an initial presentation relative to site plan and a special use permit at 5701 Bowman Road. We have been informed by the applicant that we are moving quicker than they had anticipated, and they've asked to have it removed from the calendar for tonight. They will be back in touch with us at a later time, but it's moving forward. It just apparently we're moving too quick. So the next item on the agenda is the application by Woodland Hills for its subdivision known as the Hogue Lane development. This is for site plan approval of a 21 lot subdivision located at 5290 to 5320 Hogue Lane, Fayetteville. This is all on one tax parcel, tax map number 104-01-39.2. And we have a few people here on behalf of the applicant. Tom, were you going to be speaking on behalf of the petition?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll do the intro if that's okay with everyone. As the board requested, we submitted the DEIS report last week. The board requested that we submit that along with 12 hard copy binders and also electronically in the form of flash drive. Our understanding is the board last week published that report, so it's been made accessible to the public, and that's where we are at this point.
Tom,
Yeah,
we've been-
so I just want to procedurally the board to know that I have, I think mine was stamped, I have received on December 16th, right? So this board has 45 days to determine whether this document is adequate for public review. And, and so we have at least 2 meetings. I'm not suggesting we take all 45 days, but that's the first part now once there's a draft environmental impact statement, which they have presented. So 45 days to determine whether the document's adequate for public review in terms of the scope and the content and so forth. And then we do an official notice of completion and acceptance. That's a secret procedure.
Tom, maybe you can help us out a little bit. That was a big volume, and I've been spending a lot of time reading hundreds of pages of that. Can you decipher for us in simplistic terms what is new in there? What parts of that are new information?
It's just formatted.
Mr. Lupia, actually, there's nothing new in those documents. It's basically just reformatted, perhaps maybe even organized to make it more easily understandable or to read on the part of the board, but to respond to your request. There really isn't anything new in there. There hasn't been any really new information generated in a matter of probably over a year on this. We've just organized it and put it all in one binder. I can tell you it was quite a process. It was over 16,000 pages in those 12 binders, so I can appreciate what you're going through to try to get through it all, but it's all organized and formatted as per the town's request. With explanation.
Okay. And you'll understand that due to the holidays, it's probably difficult for all of us to get through all of the data all at once. But we're working on it.
No, I appreciate your effort. Yep, for sure.
Do any of the board members have questions regarding the project?
I would just say what you did, Joe, that I appreciate getting the document. I picked it up on Thursday of last week. I have not had a chance to get through it.
Well, it's a chore, and it really takes an awful lot of time to digest it all. I had the better part of today, just continuing to read. Does anyone else have any questions?
I just got my book today, so I'm just starting to look at it.
So I think, it's mainly, Joe, it's an engineering issue. Right? I mean, it's pretty detailed, right? And specific. This board certainly should look at it and review it, but we're going to be relying on our professional consultants on the details. Remember, there were like 6 or 7 specific questions. We want to make sure that what's presented is complete. Start with that. So that's going to happen hopefully sooner rather than later, but certainly no longer than 45 days. If we think it's not complete for some reason, then we would send it back to the developer, and there's a certain, I think it's like 10 days or something for them, to say, oh, we're going to fix it or whatever before it goes out to public review. And then in that same time frame, kind of simultaneously, Doug is going to be looking at it, and certainly I think it would, there is probably going to be an engineering meeting in that time.
I have to agree with you. It's primarily an engineering issue. But I think we need more time to digest it all and understand it. And I think we want to hear from our town engineer at some point relative to his thoughts. But it's probably much too quick today for that.
There were some questions that our engineer had that didn't seem to be completed the last time. And I was just wondering if those have been completed now.
Well, I think, Anne, you're probably referring to the findings of this board relative to, the questions that we said had to be answered this time around. Right?
Right.
Our findings on the environmental significance. Seven issues.
On those 7 issues, Jamie, all those questions were responded to in great detail. And I would highly encourage the board to refer to the seeker manual when they are looking at these 7 responses, as we did when we prepared the document.
Okay. So, Jamie, how long do you think we need to have this back on the board again in front of us?
Well, our next meeting is what, second Monday of?
Yep, the 11th.
The 11th. I'm going to wait to hear the advice of Doug. I think we can tentatively put it on. But it is by that second meeting in January that we're in that 45-day period. So we have to work in that time frame.
Why don't we tentatively say January 11th with the understanding that we need to get together with Doug and talk to him relative to the issues, and we'll see where we go. And we'll be back in touch with the applicant to let them know whether we're definitely on for the 11th or whether we need more time.
And whether at that period of time, if there's going to be an internal engineering meeting, because we certainly want everyone to know whether this is the complete document.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be so much a determination of every question as it has to be a determination of completeness, so that we can move, to the next phase, because there will be more public input then.
Joe, I'm going to ask a very probably stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We had sent out a questionnaire that had 6, 7, 8 questions. I don't remember how many that we were waiting for a response to. We have heard tonight that this book has nothing new in it. So have those questions been answered? I'm confused at whether or not we have the answers to those questions or we don't have the questions or answer those questions. I don't know.
And I don't think we can make that. I think we need an engineering assistance on that to tell us whether we've got the answers we're looking for.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Rich, if I may, I can respond to that. I think we answered those 7 questions in great detail, and we went to extraordinary lengths to format it in such a way that it referenced all the previous exhibits over the past 3 years. Because if there's one thing I can say about this project, and I'm as close as anyone is to it, it's become very complicated and over-engineered. So what we attempted to do in the DIS report was to reference all the exhibits and tie everything in together so that it's easier for the board to interpret.
Okay. So Tom, just so I understand, your position is the questions have been answered.
100%.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, then this is tentatively adjourned to January 11th.
Hey, Joe, can I just interject one question? And I want to just make sure I'm clear, because I'm going through this in another town, and I just want to hear Jamie's take on my dumb engineer's understanding of how this works. We're not.
And which dumb engineer am I talking to?
I'm admitting it's Rudy. Am I clear in understanding that we're not talking about whether or not in this review to determine its completeness. The board doesn't have to agree with our response. They have to agree that there is a response and it's complete. If they have additional expansion they want on our provided response, they can ask for that. But my understanding is that we're not arguing whether or not we all agree on what the solution is or what the answer is. We're agreeing whether or not it's complete enough to publish to the public. Is that accurate?
That's a reasonable, yes, interpretation of that. Mhm.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah, they're totally different things. Like, is it good? Is it right? Or is it complete?
Right.
And see, I'm not sure who I'm talking to, but I'll just say it anyway. This is where my confusion comes in. We have received documentation. We asked 7 questions, which we believe were not answered. We get the same information back, and the answer is all the questions have been answered now. And I'm not an engineer, but that just is very confusing to me.
Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
We'll look at it. I understand what they're saying, that it's organized in a different kind of way that might yield a different result. We'll see.
Rich,
Okay.
My answer to that, Rich, is to go back to Tom's original statement, is that we feel like the board should read this in detail. It's cumbersome, we understand, and there's a lot of pages in there, but things are answered in there. And if you guys read it, we feel like everything we've done is justified if you read what we wrote in response specifically to the 7 items that you identified in your scoping document. Everything's tailored to those.
So are those questions somehow highlighted in here?
They are.
Or do they don't exist?
In that exact fashion it's tailored in that exact fashion that each point you ask for is listed with our responses and how it relates to the seeker document in the procedure you guys were following as far as the seeker workbook goes, and the procedure that's set forth by New York State for how you're supposed to do seeker.
Okay,
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
thank you,
Yep,
Rudy.
you're welcome.
Okay,
So, Joe,
You
I
see-
just have one more question.
yes, Michael.
The answers to these questions did not come back to us in a single document then.
No, they're in the book.
No,
They're in the book.
Yeah.
All right, and that's what I was leading to. Are they easily identifiable?
Yes, yeah. I found them.
Okay.
We have some
Okay.
studying to do.
There being no other business, did Fred want to make a motion?
You betcha.
and
Happy New Year to everybody. I move the meeting adjourned.
Second.
Joe,
Second by Richard, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Happy New Year,
2021
everyone.
people.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Hopefully the
you.
new year is better than the
Happy New
last.
Year. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Good work, Lisa.
Thank you.
You do a good
Take care.
job on this.
Thanks.
Lisa, are you in tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.